What's up, crew? Welcome to Filming in Progress, the show that takes you backstage into the world of local businesses and the people who make them shine. I'm Aiden, founder of 2C Media, and I'm here to bring you the candid conversations that unravel the challenges, victories, and untold stories of those who dare to make their mark. We'll be delving into topics like innovation, leadership, and personal growth, providing practical insights you won't find in a business textbook. Grab your beverage of choice, kick back, and get ready to intake the wisdom of founders who have been there, done that, and are still hungry for more. Ready? Let's roll. Rolling. All right, let's get into it. Thanks for taking the time today. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Let's start with an easy one.
Okay.
Who is Cory Nespor?
That's not easy. That's bullshit. I don't know. I'm just a guy. A guy trying to help. I think that's kind of what brought me to where I am. But I think first and foremost, trying to be a good man and hopefully share the skills that I've collected over the years to help as much as possible. And that's me.
Trying to help, you said. Help how? Help what?
Okay. I think in my particular circumstance, it's been in art. That's kind of the path that I found myself on. So I'm completely committed to that, all in. So along the way, just trying to help specifically with the people I meet on that path.
How'd you find art? How'd you have that all start? Bring me back to the earliest days of art in your world.
Okay. I'm a weird dude. I think so. My whole life it's been just like, my imagination's always kind of run away with me. And eventually got to a point where I was old enough I could start like actually physically creating the things that I was thinking about. So my whole life has kind of been art centric. That's what brought me to Calgary. That was 1999, just out of school. I was doing some graphic design stuff and kind of like on that path, started down that road. And then the company I worked for wasn't super solid. So I made some changes, I shifted gears and went into the trades actually. I became an electrician and pursued that for a while. And it got to a point after getting my master's and stuff, it was a point to get back to who I was as a person, more things that more aligned with my value system. So I packed up my life, I moved to New Zealand. That was 2008. And that's where I started living like a really intentional life. It was doing all the things that I felt were important, that I believed in, that I was aligned with, specifically art, and started to paint and all kinds of weird random things. But that's where art, in a lot of ways, found me. And it was kind of life telling me that this is exactly what you needed to do. So I used that moment. I ended up having a gallery show and found some success early on just with kind of shifting my life around. And it became very clear that's what I needed to do. So I came home, went up north for 3 years, sacrificed everything so I could save a nest egg, and then retired and went full in. So that's how I got here. And every step of the way is kind of using those skills, like the trade skills, the electrical stuff, and all the construction background, and just like the life lessons of all of those challenges to help and make it a little bit easier on everybody else who's trying to do the same.
Unreal. Cool. So you moved to Calgary in '99 for art.
Yes, graphic design specifically.
Yeah. And was that like an office job or what?
It was, yeah. So I grew up in Winnipeg, went to school, graduated, got out here for the design stuff, and it was just for a local media spot. Nothing too exciting, but it was leaving home. It was all that like the life stuff, right? And that's kind of what got me here. And then it was, it's been 20x amount of years of just figuring out how to be a human.
And so you said in 2008 you moved to New Zealand.
Yep.
And you found intentionality is the word that you used, which is really interesting. What did that look like?
I was pursuing, I'm an ambitious guy. I think I don't think there's anything wrong with that. The ability to eat and have experiences and that kind of stuff, like that's very much a part of kind of my DNA. So a lot of my path kind of led me down that road, right? It was like finding financial success. And it afforded, like, in the trades specifically, really aligned with that and allowed me lots of experiences and opportunities and all that kind of stuff. But I realized that that wasn't the only definition of success. It was missing some fundamental pieces for me. So that's kind of where the New Zealand trip was a way to reset. And literally, like, I rebuilt a Triumph bicycle, like just kind of started digging into the things that brought me joy. And it became less about finances and more just about living intentionally. And creativity for me is very much a part of who I am. And that's kind of the intention led down that road. And as I chose the right path, I guess the one that best kind of aligned with me as a person, the pieces started falling into place, and it made it very clear that that was the right thing to do.
Right on. I feel like it's interesting because a lot of people talk about a similar idea to intentionality is the word that you use, and I really like that. I align with that. There's a lot of points throughout people's lives that they find that moment where it's like a moment of clarity or whatever it might be. But sometimes after that happens, you lose it. Then you go back to, for example, you might come back to Canada, Calgary, Alberta, whatever, and then you lost that intentionality, or it's not practiced every day.
It's really hard work. Am I allowed to swear?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's fucking brutal, right? I don't think the world is designed to support people doing the thing that they should be doing. I think the world is designed to do the thing that exists in the structure that currently exists, right? Like, you just fit a peg, do your thing, you go to school, you get the job, you get the mortgage, you have the family, all that kind of stuff. And that is great. If that's who you are, cool, do it, right? But I feel like so many people are trying to fit into that mold, but they don't. But there's a struggle there. So the few people that break away, and I will say that there's a time, I think we are in a time where that is more commonplace. It's more comfortable for more and more people to do it. And I think once you get to a critical mass of people exploring alternative ways to get through this world, it's just easier as a whole. So I think we are in a moment like that, which allowed me a little bit more freedom in doing that, a little bit more kind of like a safety net, because it wasn't so obscure. Like, we're not talking about 1950 where that would have been outrageous, right? Like, I think nowadays, especially with like how connected we are and just all that social media, that kind of stuff, you can exist anywhere and still kind of have all of those pieces. But it's so fucking hard, right? Because every day there is like somebody's buying the new car, or somebody's getting the mortgage, or all the kind of things. And like, it pulls you away from like a really intentional thing. If those aren't, because are so many different ways to pursue this and go through life, like all those distractions, whatever they are, they kind of muddy the water and they make it very hard to stay that path. And yeah, like that focus, I think it comes down to discipline is a big piece, and your commitment and hard work and all that stuff. And unfortunately, not a lot of people kind of are willing to sacrifice to get the thing that they really want. I think a lot of people, they'll sacrifice enough to get some of it, but they don't commit the whole way. And once they kind of you break over that line, I think the sky's the limit at that point. And then it's habits, that kind of stuff. And yeah, it's so fucking hard. And so few people want to do it. To be honest, so few people truly want to do it. They say they want it, but they're not willing to do what it takes to actually have it.
Yeah, absolutely. What are the, day-to-day tips and tricks, or, North Star alignments? How do you ensure that you're maintaining that intentionality every day in what you do?
Gut checks for sure. I mean, that's just like a little internal mechanism. But I know when I'm procrastinating, I know when I'm being lazy. And that feeling makes me sick, to be honest. Like, it's almost like a physical response. So in a lot of ways I'm lucky, because it's like I don't feel well, like I feel ill. And then honestly, like, surround yourself with the right people. I think that's a huge piece of it. Like, in this space, we are surrounded by so many people doing exactly the same thing, having exact same struggles in all their individual little niches, but we are all doing this together. So surrounding yourself by the right people, you're not crazy all of a sudden, right? These are real things. Everybody else is kind of doing them one way or another, and we're learning and we're growing, and that definitely it makes it a lot easier. And then even peripherals, right? Like friends, family, all that kind of stuff too. Good people, it makes a big difference. And honestly, just like shut up and get to work. Like so much of it is literally just get to work, like do the thing, like quit talking, quit dreaming. As much as those things are valuable, like you got to show up and do the work. And especially on the days you don't want to. Right?
Exactly. That's when it shows, right?
Yeah.
I love the idea that, you're the only person that's in control of what you can do, what you want to do. And we've talked about that off camera, about extreme ownership concept.
100%, yeah. And I mean, again, exactly the right people, right? Like you literally shared a book that embodies that idea, right? Like, and again, another piece that helps support an individual's practice and how you grow, right? Like that's exactly what the space does. So that's a perfect example, right?
So speaking about books, tell me about the book.
We're going to talk about extreme ownership?
No, not that one. The book.
Oh, my notebooks.
Your book.
Oh, okay. There are 20, I think there's 20 of them, 21. And that was, it was a stupid, drunken kind of like, I don't know, like adolescent thing. My buddies and I, we grabbed a notebook and we started like just bumming around, going to house parties, like going down 17th Ave, whatever, having some beers, that kind of stuff. And we had this book and we started like walking up to random strangers and asking them to write whatever they wanted. And like some people are like, this is so weird. Like I'm in, I'll write something for sure. Somebody like, fuck you. Like, I don't want to talk to you. Get away from me. And like everything in between, right? And at the beginning it was like sort of like drunken kind of like scribblings and stuff like that. But every once in a while there was like something really genuine. It was like, oh man, like that was super rad. And then it kind of like encouraged, like we got to do this again. And then just like meeting new people and kind of like working on like the delivery and stuff like that. And it kind of became a game in some ways. It was a lot of fun, but we kept going and kept going. And then one book turned into 5 and then 5 into 10. And eventually the book kind of took on a voice of its own. And it became this really meaningful thing where like people actually had some really legitimate shit to share. And that book became the inspiration for my painting and for my work. And basically my job has become sharing what people have shared with me. And like, there's 2 ways to look at that, right? Like a lot of people, I mean, not a lot of people, but some people would say, oh, you're just copying other stuff that people have shared with you, blah, blah, blah. And like, that's true, sure. But that's important. I think there's something so positive about that, like something to lean into. Like why do this thing alone? Like we all have so much information and so much knowledge to share with each other to make it easier on everybody. Like, why don't we do that? So that's kind of what my job's become.
Really cool. So you use like quotes from the book in your work? Literally,
yeah. So absolutely, very like literally, like if you some of the work in the space and just my work in general, very much words that are like I've used like I could probably get in trouble for that too, I guess, and nowadays. But photocopies or whatever, or printing of like the actual handwriting, just a way of like really making it very clear that this has been shared with me, and now I'm sharing it with everybody else. But then, incorporating, I've always been a fan of typography. So incorporating typography and these ideas together was a lot of fun for me. But yeah, it's very much, for me, that's the point.
And so that whole process wasn't planned, right? Like the book was just a fun thing to do on the weekends when you're walking around 17. And
100%.
What did your artwork look like before?
There was no artwork before that.
I see.
So artwork for me as a kid was like high school art, like just like, the curriculum stuff. Goofing around with like random sculptural stuff, soapstone carving, like nothing crazy, but just like being creative. And then very much led into the design work. So computer-based layout, graphic design stuff. That's kind of what my art was. And then the shift and then refining and refining that stuff after years of like trade skills, working with my hands and kind of like creating like these real life things. So building frames and kind of elaborating on that stuff, and I just became a lot more technical with building things, and that's kind of what brought me back into the painting, which is where I'm now. So
it seems like a lot of your inspiration comes from people, like you talked about surrounding yourself with the right people. Share something is like a tagline of yours, is that?
Okay. I guess that was sort of like I'd give business cards out when we were going around town and just being idiots and share something was the idea for sure. It's like we all have something to share. Like we all have an idea that kind of guides us, or maybe several, right? So that's sort of what it was, is let's share these things. Let's share something with, like the 10-year-old version of yourself. Like if we can inspire, let's do that. So that's kind of, it all ties together, I guess.
Right on. So you go through this journey yourself from 99, then 2008 again. What is Neverland and where does that kind of fit into this journey?
Okay, yeah. So I got back, I built my own shop and I got set up and I was practicing September 4th, 2013. I retired from everything and became an artist full time. And I started digging into that practice and working through all of like the ups and downs and like the self-doubt and all the questions and all that kind of stuff, what it means to be a full-time practicing artist, because like I said, it's fucking ridiculously hard.
September 2013, you said?
September 4th, 2013, Labor Day long weekend.
So 10 years ago.
10 years ago, yeah.
Wild.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy like how time flies and that kind of stuff, right? But as I was getting into my practice and obviously learning so much very quickly because you just have to, I realized pretty early on that I had more in my tank. There was just like the practical skills that I had when it comes to construction, et cetera. There was just more for me to give. And I was in a house in Southwest Calgary, and it was me and my practice, and it was like, I'm wasting space. Like I can help people. I have space to accommodate people. And so that kind of like really shifted, I guess, set me down the path of wanting to do more. And that's when I went over into Marda Loop and sort of kind of helping around a little bit with the studio there, which dissolved because the building got torn down, and that was the roots for Neverland. And I think we got really lucky in the sense that, not lucky, but fortunate. The physical infrastructure of this space allows us to help lots of people, right? So whether we knew what we were doing or not, we had studios to fill. We had space that was vacant, and all of a sudden, 4 artists turned into 20, which turned into 50. And now we've got 30 people on the wait list, and it's just like that, the core of wanting to help has grown, and it's clear that it's important. So that's kind of kept us going.
Awesome. How'd you come up with the name? Where'd the name come from?
It was Kelly. It was funny. We were just sitting around, and we probably drank a little bit more around here than we should when we were figuring things out, and that's how things grow, I guess. But it was just like we don't want to grow up, right? So Neverland, right? Peter Pan. And it's funny because at that time that made a hell of a lot of sense. And interesting now, like the evolution of this project, it's exciting to think that we actually are growing up. Like I think we've kept the innocence, we've kept that kind of the creative playfulness, but we're also becoming professionals. And to see not only this project, but the artists in this space grow in their practice and become more professional and self-sustaining. And the fact that you can be an artist and have a mortgage. You can be an artist and you get to eat food every day. You know what I mean? Like these ideas, like they're not just for bankers and lawyers and doctors and all that kind of shit. It's like you get to do exactly what you want to do, and you get to be as successful as anybody else, any traditional measure of success, right? So to see all of those pieces and everybody kind of growing together, it's pretty cool. So like maybe a rebranding, I don't know, but it's exciting that how far we've come from where we started. So which it's pretty cool to have seen that happen.
No doubt. For those who don't know, can you give like a little overview of what Neverland does?
Currently? Yeah, sure, 100%. So Neverland is a non-profit arts foundation, and basically we provide studio space. So safe, affordable, accessible studio space. The hotel specifically, it's got 26 studios, and it's filled with all varying disciplines of art. But Neverland as a whole, it's our responsibility to help support and empower artists in those spaces to develop their practices, and whatever that is. So we've got an event space, which allows artists to basically, the hotel, if that's the working dirty space, that's the ideation, that's the creation, that's the get messy and come up with something weird. And then we've got the event space next door, which allows artists to connect with their patrons and the community, et cetera, et cetera. our intention is to support not only the growth of people's practices, but then also community as well, specifically through connection, right? Providing the connection points for all of these people to get together, create, collaborate, and all that kind of stuff. So in a nutshell, that's kind of what we do. We're expanding into programming. So there are more ways where we can provide educational moments where we can start bringing in, like high school to start kind of like filtering, if you think like a succession plan, as far as bringing artists, the up and comers into these environments to kind of get a better sense of what a practicing artist's career looks like. Working with AU Arts for the same reasons, right? Like a transitional piece from being in school to then being a full-time artist. So because of the foothold that we kind of have in the studio space and kind of what that looks like, we've been afforded the opportunity to expand and really start bringing more pieces in.
Awesome. Yeah, awesome.
In a nutshell.
In a nutshell, is right. Yeah, no, it's crazy. I mean, we're fortunate enough, like 2C's, been in the space for a long time, and it's funny because as you were talking about, like helping is like you said is what you're all about, and that's true not only for yourself. You've helped us in the space plenty, but also everybody embodies that kind of mentality. I think and everybody's got crazy ideas when we need something built or whatever. It's done the next day, and it's awesome.
And what I really appreciate about that too is that, first of all, you guys being here and witnessing your guys' growth has been amazing. But also all like these crazy ideas that we all have, all of a sudden aren't that crazy, right? It's like, wait a second, like anything you can imagine is real. Like you come up with this thing and it doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, we can like why we're here in the first place right now having this conversation is just like an idea that you guys had and you're developing it and it's awesome. You know what I mean? Like we've had the freedom to explore these things that maybe are just on the fringes and are actually pretty damn solid and we need to be doing them, right? So it's been a lot of fun to be a part of that stuff.
Awesome. So building anything, is you always have these expected outcomes, like providing studio space, providing a space where artists can thrive and, figure their lives out and progress to the next level, whatever that case may be.
Hopefully, right?
Hopefully. I'm curious, are there any unexpected outcomes that, you wouldn't have anticipated would have been the case when starting Neverland, but, for better or worse?
That's a good question. The amount of work, I think that was unexpected. I think in some ways, at some level, art is kind of an easy breezy thing. And this project has been anything but. It's been really hard. It pushes you to levels that you never, like the amount of commitment that it requires. In lots of ways, it's unsustainable. Yeah, I think how hard this thing has pushed and how much we have all sacrificed to get it to a point where it doesn't have to be such a sacrifice. I don't think anybody would have expected how deep in the well we had to go. But we did in a lot of ways. Obviously, there's so much more to do, but it gave us a good baseline. And now we get to build from that. And I think for the first time, like this project is positioned in such like to really affect positive change. I think every minute up until now, we've done our best for sure. There's no question. I will never take that away from anybody. It's been amazing. But I think we're at that moment where we're growing up a little bit, right? Which is like the next steps in the future. It's really exciting. And like it's kind of palpable in a lot of ways, at least for me. I think, I can't express the amount of sacrifice that went into getting us this far, and there's no way to anticipate that. But it was met with a willingness to see it through. So fortunately, we got this far.
You ever second guessed?
Every day. I mean, I think that's it. It's helpful, right? If you're not asking yourself questions, you're fucked. You know what I mean? Like if you're not reevaluating your position, if you're not thinking of a better way to do something, why do it at all? I think that's complacency, and you're going to fail. So yeah, every day. And I appreciate it. Like I'm grateful for that. Even the chance that we have been afforded an opportunity to allow ourselves to ask that question. Like how can we be better, right? Like most people just head down, do the thing. And 20 years you wake up and you're like, man, like if we would have like taken a pause, we made a little pivot. That word's so great. Fuck you, pivot.
Like the classic COVID pivot.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But like COVID was a great example of like, let's take some pause and, oh man, have we made mistakes? But it allowed us an opportunity, like an honest opportunity to try and address them. And did we get that right sometimes? No, a lot of the times we got it really wrong actually. But again, like honestly looking at that and be like, okay, like we can't make that mistake again. And we get to be better. And then it's kind of like that becomes a part of like the day-to-day communication. Is like, is this the right way to do things? Is there a better way? Like we've got a strategy meeting this weekend actually, specifically about that, right? Like it's like, let's start mapping the future. Like we've learned so much, let's take that data and let's be better every day. So I love it.
Yeah, awesome. Is there a failure that you've experienced throughout the time at Neverland that you're comfortable talking about?
Comfortable talking about? There's plenty of failures. Oh man, that's tough. I think a lot of it, like, I mean, broad strokes, communication, I think is something that, and in every capacity, has been something where we've sucked really good.
Really good. I like
we've
that.
made, like pretty bonehead moves. And they come from honest places. I think, you do something, like an example for this project specifically is we released the code of conduct to the studio. And that's like, on the surface, that is a no-brainer good thing to do, right? It very clearly identified how we hope people treat each other, they treat the space, they interact here, and move forward. And also provided all kinds of connection points for like anonymous feedback and resolution strategies and all this kind of stuff. And it was like, it made a lot of sense. It was super, it seems like, and it is a super valuable document. But the way we rolled it out didn't make a lot of sense. So it just came out of nowhere and it shocked people, right? And it put people off because it just, well, like, what have I done wrong to deserve this document, right? And like, that is something just simply corrected by communication. And that's like, being open about that would have saved us all kinds of headache. And you think about that in every, like, when we adjusted our leases, et cetera, right? Like, clear communication is massive. And I mean, every day, like, we suck at it pretty good still, but it's getting better, right? Even the way I said that, like, we got lots of work to do, but we're aware. Yeah. And it's an intentional point of improvement.
Right on. What does the future of Neverland look like? I know that's a tough question, but...
It's good. I mean, like, again, the strategy meeting, right? Like, so even anything I say right now, it's going to change in a week.
Yeah, exactly.
But one thing that I can comment on, regardless of the specific pieces, is permanence. That is the absolute first, not the first, but the most important thing for me personally. As for the project, it's important. I am tired of, we're dealing with it right now as a city. The Green Line's coming through some neighborhoods, Ramsey specifically, which is predominantly artist space, or just like a weird creative community. And spaces are getting knocked down. Artists are losing their space. So to continue this project without permanence is nonsensical, in my opinion. So I would say that being a permanent part of the conversation, working with the city, developing a plan to ownership where there's security in that, whether you can actually, with that security, then you can start developing bigger ideas too. So for me, I think that's probably top of mind, so that tomorrow we don't get a random email saying, hey, you got 30 days because the building's getting bulldozed because we're putting in, I don't know, something that's not an art studio, right? So, and like, it's the stories all the time. Like, you think of like Brooklyn and all that kind of stuff, just like artists come into a neighborhood, they make it look cool. All of a sudden, you can profit off that. The developers come in and kick everybody out and blah, blah, blah. So we want to have equity in this community and grow with it forever.
So would you say the location of, where Neverland is currently is important?
Yeah, I think I do actually. I think we got lucky just because of how the cards kind of fell. But it's rad. The community is amazing. Like, you walk down the street and you probably know 3 or 4 people from the neighborhood just because everybody's kind of like, we're all creatives. We're all doing these same kind of we are all living these intentional kind of regular life adjacent lives, right? And that's a wonderful thing. I think Ramsey's just kind of become a community full of these kind of misfits, and we're moving along together. It's pretty cool.
How do you balance, everybody's got a lot going on. I'm always curious to know, is there, you've got your personal life, you've got your art, you've got your involvement in Neverland, and I'm sure there's a bunch of other things, Golf, yeah, absolutely, the most important, right?
Most important.
How do you balance all of that? I know, like, people talk about a work-life balance, which is different for everybody. That term is technically incorrect for a lot of people. What does that whole idea look like to you?
Yeah, actually, this conversation I was having recently with another artist in the space, and Karen was saying that she's like, that's bullshit, and I'm like, okay, tell me more. She's like, for her, and I think I align in this way too, is that it's more cyclical, right? It's like you're all in on this one thing, and then you're all in on the next thing, and then you're all in on the next thing, and then you get back to the first thing again, and it just goes around and around and around. I don't know if you can do 1 hour of everything in a day and then just do that every single day endlessly. I think it's more like you're committed to the one thing that leads into the next thing, and then the cycle continues. So I very much aligned with that. But balance in the day-to-day, in making time for yourself, and like treating, like being healthy, eating well, that kind of stuff, waking up and going to bed at regular times and blah, blah, blah. It's tough. Oh man, I don't know if I do it, to be honest. I think I strive to. But it's hard, especially like it's entrepreneurship, right? Like in every step of the way, and like you finish one job that you're lucky to have in a lot of ways because you've worked hard to earn that thing. And so lucky, maybe a bad word, fortunate for sure. But then that project is done. And then there's like all of the other, like there's the administration that comes after it, right? And there's like, this probably better than anybody. And it never ends, right? Because then it's man, but I still got to squeeze this thing in, and then and then there's a family, and oh man, there's food, and there's I got to shower, and like it doesn't stop. So I don't know. For me, I think it's like finding a struggle that I'm worth dying for, and accepting it. For me, that's kind of what it's been. Just because it's as we intentionally work towards solutions to make all of this easier, any gap that we create is going to be filled with something else. So again, lots of questions, kind of revisiting, like, are we making mistakes? Are we doing this the right way? How do we be better? Like those constant check-ins, but then also like just acknowledging that it's a lot of work. So, and being okay with that.
Yeah. It sounds like passion is a driver for you.
Yeah, that's
Like
yes, and I hope it's for everybody, right? Like, without it, man, what's the point?
Totally.
Right? Life's too short and all that kind of stuff, but just the world is better if you're happy in it, right? Like, just like the way you go to the grocery store and interact with somebody who maybe you're reaching for like the last tomato, I don't know, you know what I mean? Like, do you want to be a dickhead in that moment, or do you just want to be like chill? Right? And I think if you've got passion in the things that you're doing and you're happy in your life, and obviously it's not always easy, you're going to have bad days. But yeah, do the thing that you want to do. Believe in it, and things get easier. So on you as a person, as the people around you, life in general, right? Like it's just, I'd rather do it that way. Fuck the rest.
Where do you find fulfillment? How do you find fulfillment in all these different things, all these different aspects of your life?
This is a great example. I think every day, honestly. Being here every day, having weird conversations about weird ideas, about things that maybe aren't even that weird. And once you start talking about them, they're super solid, rad thing. And like, let's do that. Mm-hmm. It's that quick, right? Like you just like, frame of mind, shifted a little bit, working through problems. That trumps, bad word. That's worse than pivot now, actually. But that means more to me than the other struggles. And like, you know what I mean? It's just like, we're in this thing and it's real. We are doing something pretty special. Right? And it's not outrageous. Like it's kind of needs to be done. So the fulfillment is every day. It's like, the most random of things, right? It's like, hey, if you reorganize the furniture in your studio a little bit, you're going to maximize your square footage, and you'll be able to actually do this other thing over here too. Like something that's stupid versus like kind of ideating about a painting or like a color scheme or a composition or whatever, right? Or like almost anything. Just the fact that being surrounded by creatives, working through these ideas, problem solving every day. And yeah, and as far as like personal life and family and friends and stuff like that, I'm pretty fortunate to have a really good group that way. So like those things those aren't even issues. Like those are just checkbox. You know what I mean? Like those are check marks for sure. So it's just like how do I go out in the world and be the best version of myself? How do I help as much as I can, and grow as much as possible so that it's easier to help the next time and the next time and the next time. And I'm fortunate enough I could kind of do that every day, and every day is awesome that way, right? Even when it's not, because I'm on the path that I should be on, and it's always going to be okay that way.
Right on. I've been lucky enough to experience the Neverland community, or the community in general that exists not only within these walls but outside. I when I refer to the Neverland community, or think about it, it's not just the people that are in the space. It goes a lot beyond that. How important is community to be both you and Neverland as a project, and how do you foster that?
Good question. Man, I got an itchy nose. Sorry, I gotta get that out of the way. Sorry.
You derailed the whole thing.
I know. I do that sometimes. Community is so vital. However, it is a catchphrase bullshit word most of the time. And what I mean by that is so many people use it as a catch-all for all of these great, wonderful things. And it's bullshit. Like, community is connection. It is meeting somebody 50-50. You got to meet in the middle. It's not, I need you to do this thing for me and I'm going to say thank you, or maybe not even say thank you, but it's going to help me do this other thing and I'm going to go be a part of something. Like, fuck that. Like, meeting in the middle and actually being committed to each other in a common goal. Right? I think that's where community, personally, for me, that's where that exists. And then it's that idea multiplied. And like, you're taking a little bit over here, you've learned a little bit here, and that goes over to the next person and then the next person. And I think there's something like a groundswell of organic growth that way when everybody's kind of invested together. And it's a fragile thing too. It can be pulled apart very quickly. I mean, COVID was a horrible thing for so many reasons. And I think specifically, I mean, there's obvious reasons, but it also pulled us away from each other. So I think there's that's 2.5 years of creating bad habits. So kind of getting back into those pieces where we're getting back together, doors are opening up, et cetera. It's more normal to kind of be going out and doing social things again, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, and then as far as this project, again, it's everywhere. People are we're creating opportunities for groups to connect to new groups, and kind of the spark of ideas are kind of being transferred, et cetera. And meeting in the middle. I think, I really dislike the word community, and I probably sound like an asshole for saying that out of context. But in context, it's a word that people use way too loosely, because so many people want to be a part of something or expect something to be given to them, but they're not actually investing in themselves. And that's where the breakdown happens, in my opinion. And I've seen it here, I've seen it just in regular life. And I'm hopeful that as Neverland grows forward, that everybody's kind of rowing in the same direction, right? Like, that we're in this together, we're meeting in the middle. And I think as far as community and connection, that's kind of where I hope we are, and I hope we stay there. So
remind me not to say community, pivot, or Trump, right?
Yes.
I've got a running tally now.
We got to scratch those off the list. Those are terrible. That and moist. That's also, put that on the list. That's a terrible word.
Okay, we got 4. Moist is added. Are there any practices or healthy habits that you practice that enable you to, just maintain a positive attitude in everything that you do?
I don't. I don't have a positive attitude with everything I do. No way. Like, I think, like, oh man, life kicks you in the ass, right? Like, it's, again, this is really hard. I mean, life in general is really hard. I don't care what you do. And you take your licks. I think that's a part of it, but it's an acceptance of that. You know what I mean? Like, something bad happening to us, and you guys have experienced something that could have been very business changing. And I mean, you take your licks, you manage, you work through it, you know, and you grow. I think that's part of it. I think you're allowed to have bad days, right? You're allowed to, you know, not be 100% or, you know, be happy all the time, but checking in with yourself, right? And making sure that even if you're not doing okay, it's still okay. And accepting that, I think it makes it easier.
I think it's something you said earlier too, but it's how you carry yourself in the low days that kind of...
Yeah, right? It's like the peaks and valleys, right? You try and knock off the bottom a little bit. And even the tops too, right? You can't get too high. Like, that's, you know, like if you're riding in cloud nine, and like that's unsustainable just as much as being depressed all the time. So really trying to find that middle, and balance in yourself if you can, even if you can't, with the day-to-day of everything. Because at the end of the day, that's all you really have control of anyways, right? Is kind of how we respond to all the things that life throws at us. So just try not to be an asshole, I guess, which is not easy sometimes. It's very easy to be an asshole.
Yeah. Definitely. Is it, as an artist, you know, it's funny that people always have these saying a starving artist, that sort of thing. Is it, you know, because you never really know what the next day is going to bring. I feel like that's true for a lot of different industries and practices and that sort of thing, but it's heavily associated with art. How does that feel for you? How do you navigate that unknowingness of potentially when the next commission is going to come in or whatever the case may be?
I think it's gross. I think that idea is gross. I think starving artists, it's bullshit. I think it's a scapegoat idea. I think if I say that about my practice, then that means that I'm letting myself off the hook for actually showing up and doing the work. It's like, this is the way it's supposed to be, right? I'm not supposed to, you know, find financial success. I'm just supposed to be kind of like, I don't know, in the peripherals. I don't know, it's gross. I actually really kind of hate that idea.
No, that's good. I think that kind of translates into everything that you do, is the idea that shouldn't exist, and you know.
I hope so. Yeah, I do think it's complete bullshit. Yeah. Because I think we all know how hard we're working. We know it, whether we say it out loud or whether we acknowledge it or not. Like, you feel that every day. And if you've got another gear, then find it. And if you don't complain, because that's on you. That's maybe a little bit harsh, but...
That's good. No, the harsh is the honest reality is what we're looking for here. It's awesome. Awesome. That's it. I really appreciate your time. You nailed it.
I don't know. You guys are awesome. Thank you. Thank you. This is fun. I don't know. It's weird too, right? Yeah, I'm grateful. Like, it's so cool. So our personal moment, right? Like, you guys coming to Neverland and finding a basement. We were talking about this earlier today. Like, literally considering moving into a basement with your practice that was full of like random dressers from like 3 different renovations of like a very seedy hotel.
Yeah.
Like spray paint on the walls, like not like one kind of like flickering light bulb, like an absolute shit.
Stains on the ceiling.
Yeah, right? Like an absolute dumpster fire of space. Mm-hmm. But you guys took a chance and you saw opportunity, and to see you grow into what you've like to be here now, right? And to, you know, to kind of be alongside you with that, it's amazing. So I'm super grateful that we get to do this, and thanks for having me. And I think we're fortunate.
I agree with you 100%. It's always interesting to kind of see those, you know, the behind the scenes, the drivers. You know, you don't get to those by not having these conversations, right? And like you mentioned early, it's those fundamentals, it's those beliefs and those daily practices that kind of shape who you are, what you do, all of these different things. And it's been really interesting kind of deeper diving into those, and, you know, some of the things that I've seen you do and the way that you conduct your business, yourself, everything like that is all justified by individual experience and everything that's happened. So Really cool.
It's been cool, and I will say a thank you to you and everybody here, to be honest, because I think we all are shaping each other's kind of path, right? Like and our habits and our experiences, because we're in this together, right? And I'm kind of a competitive person, but the idea that like we're all growing, and kind of your trials and tribulations and the things that you're going through there, those are shaping my trials and tribulations, right? And everybody else in the space too, because we're even if we like acknowledge it or not, we're all learning together, and the fact that we are already where we are is pretty exciting. Well, thank you.
Competition with collaboration.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a thing.
Awesome. Well, thank you.